take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. It is Friday, January 30th, 2015, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. It's also got to be my last day as a 46-year-old man. That's right. Tomorrow, January 31st, is my birthday, as well as Justin Timberlake, Minnie Driver, Tallulah Bankhead, Nolan Ryan, and many others. Me and JT will be celebrating. We brought sexy back, you understand. Also, of course, this Sunday, Super Bowl X-Licks, the Seattle Heartbreakers versus the New England Cheaters. I don't know what to do about this. I hope you have a great Super Bowl Sunday weekend, and I'll probably be busy. Got plenty of work to do. The Oregon State Legislative Assembly begins their work on February 2nd. Today, there was an important meeting by the Oregon Liquor Control Commission regarding marijuana as well. So things are going to get quite busy here at 420 Radio and the Russ Belville Show. On Mondays and Wednesdays, there will not be episodes of Toker Talk Radio during the session, since I'll have to go down to Salem and attend those meetings for the Measure 91 Implementation Committee. Stay tuned to our calendar. If you go to 420radio.org/schedule, I keep that pretty up to date. You'll be able to see when I'll be in and when I'll have to take off. Speaking of taking off, next Friday, I'll be taking off to the High Times Cannabis Cup in San Bernardino, California. Got to catch an early flight, so won't be able to bring you any shows next Friday, but we will bring you live audio streaming from the Cannabis Cup on Saturday and Sunday, and plenty of video coverage when we return on the following Monday. And then the weekend after that, we've got the International Cannabis Business Conference in San Francisco, so might have some schedule adjustments there as well. Just check out 420radio.org/schedule. You can keep track of the whole thing. On today's show, we have got a fantastic guest, a really good friend of the show. Serra Frank, the founding director of Moms for Marijuana, will be joining us to tell us about another case of Child Protective Services abuses of law-abiding marijuana consumers. Oh, I hate having to tell this story, but we need to get that information out. And speaking of that, in the Radical Rant today, we're going to be talking about how the bigotry against cannabis users would be so obvious if it weren't marijuana we were talking about. We're talking about child custody and the right to bear arms and the right to be employed and so forth. So many stories coming out on that issue, and it really speaks to the civil rights nature of fighting for marijuana legalization. Also on the show today, we'll have time to go behind the headlines where they've announced the 10 members of the proposed Ohio constitutional marijuana grow monopoly. So we'll get all the names, some surprising names from the world of sports actually showing up on the list. We'll break that all down for you in behind the headlines. We've also got drug war data mining. Our number one headline of the day is how the DUID statistics for 2014 have come out from the Colorado State Patrol. A lot of online and print news media are making some pretty alarmist claims about that, when the data actually show marijuana users are far less culpable for road DUIs than drinkers of alcohol. That probably doesn't surprise anyone. But we start everything off with the 420 Radio News, and in the headlines today, we'll start with that Colorado State Patrol numbers. Then we turn to the state of Delaware, where decriminalization has been introduced. In South Carolina, they're trying to fix their CBD-only law to let people actually make the stuff. We've got a renewed effort in Maryland to move for marijuana legalization. The Seneca Nation of Indians, a former president of that tribe, is leading a conference in Seattle for tribal investigation into marijuana legalization options, and a Seattle marijuana dispensary is rolling 12,000 joints in time for Super Bowl X-Licks, otherwise known as Super Bowl 49 for those of you who don't read Roman numerals. It's all coming up, plus more stories in Hour 2 Toker Talk Radio. Stick around. We're back after these advertising messages.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
420 Radio, the home of marijuana experts.
Sir, do you think there will or should come a time for us to discuss the possibility of legalization, regulation, and control of all drugs, thereby doing away with the violent criminal market as well as a major source of funding for international terrorism? Thank you so much for your time, Mr. President.
Well, I think this is an entirely legitimate topic for debate.
Name the time and place, Mr. President. Radical Russ has been prepping for this debate full-time since 2005. The Russ Belville Show.
Fun.
What's happening, cool cats? This is Big Daddy, and I want you to cruise on over to the funky roller rink. We'll be grooving all night long. Doors open at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific, every Thursday night, right here on RadicalRuss.com.
Funky-licious.
This is Radical Russ encouraging you to take a look at the Weed blog every day. Johnny Green and the staff at the Weed blog are on top of all the latest developments in the fight to end marijuana prohibition nationwide. You can even get the Weed blog on your smartphone by installing the Weed blog app for iPhone and Android. If it's about weed, it's on the Weed blog, including my original writing. So don't delay, read the Weed blog today. It's time for the 420 Radio News, covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Transcripts of 420 Radio News are available daily on our website at 420radio.org. Now, here's Russ Belville with your marijuana headlines in 4 minutes and 20 seconds.
This is your 420 Radio News for Friday, January 30th, 2015. Approximately 1 in every 8 citations issued by the Colorado State Patrol last year for impaired driving involved suspected marijuana use, according to new statistics from the agency. For 2014, the State Patrol reported that troopers issued 5,546 citations for driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Of those, 674, or about 12.2%, involved suspected marijuana use, either alone or in combination with other intoxicants. For 354 of those citations, about 6.4% of the total, or 1 in every 16, marijuana was believed to be the only substance involved. The State Patrol did not provide statistics on the marijuana blood levels found in the cases, or how often the citations led to convictions. Delawareans caught with an ounce or less of marijuana would face just civil fines, not a criminal record, under decriminalization legislation introduced Thursday by a Wilmington lawmaker in the State House of Representatives. The legislation, House Bill 39, would treat simple possession of marijuana and private use like a traffic ticket. Selling marijuana and also possessing marijuana with an intent to sell would remain criminal offenses. Governor Jack Markell has also signaled support for decriminalization of marijuana, making it more likely the measure could clear Legislative Hall and reach his desk by the end of June. Representative Helene Keeley's bill would impose a $100 fine for possession of up to an ounce of marijuana and private use of marijuana. Under the legislation, those caught smoking marijuana in a public place would still face a criminal unclassified misdemeanor charge, punishable by a $200 fine and up to 5 days behind bars. Republican legislators in conservative South Carolina expect to introduce bills next month allowing marijuana to be grown and prescribed for certain illnesses. One would provide better access to a non-psychoactive oil derived from marijuana. Last year, the legislature approved letting people who suffer from severe epilepsy use cannabidiol, known as CBD oil, to control their seizures. Last year's law allowed possession of the oil by patients and their parents, but no one can legally make it in South Carolina. A separate bill expanding marijuana's allowed medical uses will be a tougher sell. Dr. Tim Pierce, president of the South Carolina Medical Association, said it would diminish the professionalism of medical doctors. Advocates for legalizing marijuana are mounting a renewed effort to get Maryland to follow the lead of Colorado and Washington state. If not now, then in a year or two. Legalization efforts have fallen short twice before in Annapolis, and sponsors of this year's bill acknowledge it's a long shot this session too. But they point to a recent poll indicating 53% of Marylanders support legalization. Senate President Thomas V. Miller said he does not believe legislators were ready to approve legalization. Quote, "We're going to move forward with medical marijuana, try to solve people's aches and ills," Miller said. "But in terms of making it available to the general public, I don't anticipate that happening anytime soon," end quote. A former president of the Seneca Nation of Indians is sponsoring a national conference for Indian tribes that hope to someday cash in on the legalized marijuana business. The Tribal Marijuana Conference is scheduled for February 27th at the Tulatip Resort Casino near Seattle. Robert Odawai Porter, who has served as the Seneca president from 2008 to 2010, is a co-sponsor and organizer of the event. Porter said there has been growing interest among tribes all over the nation since October, when the U.S. Justice Department issued a policy statement that it no longer will prosecute marijuana sales on Indian lands as long as sales are controlled. Porter has been closely studying the issue in preparation for what some believe could be a huge business opportunity for Indian tribes, possibly within the next few years. A Seattle-based marijuana retailer is rolling 12,000 joints in time for Sunday when the Seattle Seahawks take on the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 49. Joe Santucci, sales director at Solstice, said his employees will end up using about 6,000 grams of cannabis, a little over 13 pounds, for the massive joint rolling project. The shop sells a pack of 12 joints, a special Seahawk blend comprised of blueberry cheesecake and headband strains, for about $70. The special edition joints are only available to medical marijuana patients for now. The shop will absolutely have the product for recreational users next year once Solstice opens its first licensed retail processing facility later in 2015. This has been your 420 Radio News for Friday, January 30th, 2015. I'm Russ Belville.
420 Radio, fighting prohibition since 2012.
The Green Cross has been an amazing source of cannabis medicines for my pain management. Whether I need edibles or tinctures or topicals, I'm able to combine the 2 or 3 to give me really successful pain control.
It's the delivery service that Green Cross provides is just incredible. You get your medicine and it's delivered by a person that you trust.
Whether we come to you or you come to us, the Green Cross delivers.
Despite strong public support for medical cannabis, decriminalization, and legalization in Georgia, the state spends $121 million every year to arrest, prosecute, and imprison Georgians for simple possession. Each year, the state of Georgia spends less on driver services, agriculture, and forestry combined. What else can $121 million a year do in Georgia? With that much money, the state could hire and keep 3,000 more teachers, improve roads and bridges, provide tax relief for small businesses, repair aging sewage systems, or lower taxes. But right now, that's millions of dollars of your tax money wasted on failed enforcement. Tell your representative you're tired of wasteful spending and ask them to end cannabis prohibition. Join the conversation at www.peachtreenormal.org. Peachtree Normal is a proud affiliate of NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws.
The International Cannabis Business Conference is coming to the Hyatt Regency Hotel in San Francisco, California, February 15th and 16th, 2015. Don't miss this exclusive opportunity to hear from the experts on the future of marijuana commerce, including scientists like Dr. Carl Hart, Dr. Amanda Ryman, and Dr. Stanton Peel, policy experts like Ethan Nadelman from Drug Policy Alliance, Anthony Johnson from Oregon's Legalization Campaign, travel author Rick Steves from Washington's Legalization Campaign, and California legalization pioneer Dale Sky Jones. Business experts like Harborside Steve D'Angelo, ArcView Group's Troy Dayton, and UFCW union leader Dan Rush. Cannabis journalists like Ricardo Baca, Steve Bloom, and Doug Fine, and California Republican Congressman Dana Rohrabacher, plus many, many more. Tickets are on sale now at internationalcbc.com, but hurry, last year's conference in Portland, Oregon was a sellout. International Cannabis Business Conference, San Francisco, California, February 15th and 16th, internationalcbc.com.
Welcome back, everyone. 14 and a half after the hour. And today in Behind the Headlines, we revisit a story we've talked about on Tuesday and Wednesday on the show. And that's regarding the groups that are trying to legalize marijuana in the state of Ohio. And the group that is currently getting the most ink and the most play in the Ohio newspapers and TV stations is Responsible Ohio, a group that proposes a constitutional amendment that would legalize the growing of marijuana in just 10 sites statewide. This is being financed by 10 investors who would then become the growers. And the people behind Responsible Ohio have been short on some details about their amendment. But today they have released a list of the people who will be involved, the 10 investors involved. This would be your proposed Ohio constitutional marijuana growing cartel. First, we have Oscar Robertson. That's right, the Big O, Oscar Robertson, a NBA, or actually a basketball Hall of Fame member, because when it comes to cultivating fine quality marijuana, who would you trust more than a basketball player? Well, maybe a football player, because Frosty Rucker, a defensive end for the Arizona Cardinals who used to play for the Bengals and the Browns, the two teams in Ohio, is also one of the 10 marijuana cartel members. So it's just, we'll have yet to see whether a football player who grows marijuana produces a better product than a basketball player who grows marijuana. But let's not limit it to just the world of sports, since, of course, anybody who wants to grow marijuana is obviously going to be an expert worthy of constitutional monopoly protections. Nanette Lepore, a fashion designer, is involved in this business. Yes, a fashion designer. So at least the people who will be growing the marijuana will look proper as they're doing so. The uniforms will be spectacular, I can guarantee you. Another one of the constitutional monopolists is Rick Kirk. He's a Columbus area real estate developer. A real estate developer, yeah. So a guy who puts together subdivisions and building plans will be in charge of one of the 10 places growing all the marijuana in the state of Ohio. Let's move on. We've got another member of the constitutionally protected cartel, Frank Wood. He's the CEO of Secret Communications, a radio company turned venture capital firm. Oh, so a background in radio and a background in raising a bunch of money to buy out companies. That should be all the horticultural experience that one would need to produce fine quality cannabis for an entire state. Let's see, we've got Barbara Gould. Barbara Gould is a Cincinnati philanthropist. Cincinnati philanthropist does good things for humanity. Well, I suppose providing marijuana for the legal consumers in Ohio is philanthropy. It's good for humanity. Good for you, Barbara. Another person involved is Sir Alan Mooney, an investor and board member of the Ohio Council of Churches. The title Sir would at least imply to me that he is a knight of the British Empire as well. So, of course, somebody, with that much background in the United Kingdom should be granted a constitutional monopoly protection in the state of Ohio. And the Ohio Council of Churches, really? Who knew that the people in the church movement were so behind legalization of marijuana? Another member of the constitutional cartel, William Foster, an entrepreneur and philanthropist. More philanthropy. That's a good way to help humanity by becoming one of the 10 people allowed to grow marijuana, while nobody else will be allowed to. They will still remain criminals. We've got William Cheney Pruitt. Anybody who adds Cheney to their name as a nickname should be suspected immediately. He's the president and CEO of DMP Investments. They provide products and consulting services in consumer finance. All right, loans and banking and all that kind of stuff. Of course, this man should be allowed to grow marijuana for the state of Ohio. We also have John Humphrey. He's the chief financial officer of DMP Investments. So that's right, 1/5 of the constitutional monopoly in Ohio will be run by two guys from the same company, the same consumer finance company. And finally, Bobby George, a real estate developer. So we'll have two real estate developers, two professional athletes, two people from DMP Investments, two philanthropists, and two a real estate developer and a venture capital guy. Did you hear anybody in that list with any sort of experience remotely related to agriculture, horticulture, medicine, or hell, even recreational alcohol. Not a shred of experience in that list of 10. It's the latest example that shows you that money talks and bullshit walks. Let's hope that the other groups in Ohio can offer some competition to this responsible Ohio constitutional cartel monopoly.
You know, there are times where I've fallen off the wagon.
What is it that makes you think that there should only be 10 growers in an entire state? In what other consumer good do we dictate how many producers there should be? Yeah, maybe plutonium and OxyContin. But we're talking about marijuana here, folks. Hey, happy 420 in the Mountain Time Zone. We'll be right back with some drug war data mining from the Mountain Time Zone after this.
420 Radio, your ticket to the Boston Freedom Rally.
Georgia. Hi, this is Willie Nelson. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 1920s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stopped arresting responsible marijuana smokers. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
Fun.
Oh, hello. I'm Big Daddy, and I want you to join me at the Funky Roller Ring. We're partying hard over here, baby. So stop on by. Check out the funky grooves and shake your booty too.
Don't get in too deep, brother. Don't get in too heavy. Don't get so you can move about whenever you get ready.
Get.Buzz. .Buzz is the internet platform that fuels community interest, excitement, and new experiences. .Buzz is the premier online destination for internet users seeking the latest news on a variety of topics. .Buzz appeals to groups active in blogging, communications, journalism, advertising, and marketing. .Buzz offers registrants a stronger alternative to the shrinking namespace of existing top-level domain names, such as .com, .net, and .org. Get your name now at get.buzz. Arguing for the end of adult marijuana prohibition is easy because we have facts, science, reason, compassion, evidence, truth, and logic on our side. It is even easier when researchers catalog it all for us. Learn how to gather the facts on marijuana use, arrests, seizures, rehabs, drug tests, and more in this edition of Drug War Data Mining.
Welcome back, everyone. Almost 23 after the hour. In the data mine today, the big headline story is the Denver Post that says marijuana involved in 12% of Colorado State Patrol DUI cases. Oh my God, everybody run. It's a terrible, terrible thing. Of course, this is from John Ingold at the Post, and he's been known to sensationalize toward an anti-marijuana slant in his reporting. And it's one of those situations where what he reported was true. 12% of the people that were cited for DUI did have some level of marijuana that was involved. But there's some important details in this that are being glossed over. And the real story behind these numbers is the fact that marijuana is proving to be far less a risk on our highways and freeways than is alcohol. Here are the numbers. And again, it's 5,500 a little more than 5,500 DUIs, a little more than 670 involved marijuana, but only 354 involved marijuana only. And we don't know at what levels. There's a presumptive 5 nanogram limit in Colorado. It's presumptive inference that you're impaired if you're over 5 nanograms. But the cops didn't release any data on how much or what level of nanograms were listed. Another important thing to understand about this is that 75% of the DUIDs, that is 75% of these 5,500 DUIs, were from DUI checkpoints. So DUI checkpoint is not a cop who sees someone weaving down the road irresponsibly, pulls them over, and suspects they're being impaired. A DUI checkpoint is just a line through which every driver has to go through, and then the cops determine whether or not they ought to be talking to him. So this could be a simple case. 3 out of 4 of these marijuana cases could simply be a case where the cop smells marijuana on the driver or in the car and then proceeds to do the testing. There's no indication that the person who was in that car was impaired at the time and driving all recklessly. They were merely coming through a checkpoint. And this really shows up when you take a look at the data itself. Alcohol, by far, is the biggest cause for DUI citation in the state of Colorado. As usual, 88%. 7 out of 8 of all DUIs that were picked up in Colorado were for alcohol. And another 6% of those also had marijuana. That would include the case of the guy who was a high-profile case there in Colorado where he wrecked, and they found marijuana in the system, and they made a big deal about it. And then later they found out, oh yeah, he was also 3 times the legal limit with alcohol. All we are determining when we are catching most of these people for so-called marijuana DUI in the state of Colorado is the fact that they use marijuana. And this is very easily seen when you take a look at the figures for who uses alcohol and marijuana in the state. According to the latest 2013 National Survey on Drug Use and Health sub-state numbers, 66% of adults 18 and older in the state of Colorado use alcohol on a monthly basis. That's 2 out of 3 people use alcohol on a monthly basis. The numbers for marijuana use of people 18 and older are about 13%. It's 12.9%. So about 1 out of 8. Now, looking at the DUI figures, we find that about 1 out of 16 of the DUIs are for marijuana use alone. So marijuana users make up 1 out of 8 people in the state of Colorado, and they're half that rate of the DUIDs that are picked up. And that includes 3/4 of the DUIs that are picked up merely for going through a DUI checkpoint, not for being detected to be impaired in any observable way. Now, the numbers don't perfectly correlate because certainly there are people who drink alcohol and use marijuana. But again, we only have about 6% of those that get picked up in the DUI statistics as well. So when we see that 2 out of 3 people drink alcohol in the state of Colorado, and we understand that alcohol metabolizes out of someone's system in a rapid fashion to the point where a few hours later they won't even be detected, to have 7 out of 8 DUIs related to alcohol is a far greater rate than the use of alcohol in the general population. That's the true story coming out of these DUI numbers, is once again, marijuana is really no big deal on the roads compared to all the alcohol abuse going on there. Now, it should always be reiterated that we do not support people getting impaired on marijuana and getting behind the wheel. But we also understand that marijuana does not impair judgment like alcohol, and marijuana users are quite aware of how impaired they are. And frequent marijuana users can develop a tolerance to the impairing effects of marijuana. Even the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says that it is inadvisable to try to predict impairment based on marijuana in the blood or blood serum alone. Inadvisable. And that's our own National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. And furthermore, the real question is, has harm gone up? And what we found in Colorado in 2014, at least through the first 6 months where data is available, they have fewer highway fatalities in 2014 than they did in 2013, and both years are far below the average for the state of Colorado.
420 Radio, freeing your mind 24 hours a day. Are you a hypocrite? If you live a closeted cannabis lifestyle, you are. Read about 7 people living a closeted cannabis lifestyle who are on the verge of coming out in The Hypocrites by Mara K. Eaton. Available at areyouahypocrite.net. You can purchase the book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, also available on iTunes. Check out Mara K. Eaton on Facebook as well. Learn more at areyouahypocrite.net. Growing plants indoors can be a rewarding hobby, but electricity bills can go through the roof. Then you have to cool down all those big hot lights. It can drive a grower insane. With Lush LED lighting, you can solve many of these issues and double your rewards. Matt and his scientists have developed the perfect light for flowering plants with far less cost and heat. And the results? Very effective. Check out LushLEDlighting.com right now and tell them Radical Russ sent you.
The cannabis community is a diverse set of people from all walks of life, conservative and liberal, black and white, straight and gay, rich and poor, and everyone in between. Learn more about the people we are freeing from adult marijuana prohibition in our Cannabis Community Chat.
Welcome back, everybody. 31 after the hour, and today in the Cannabis Community Chat, we're going to be talking about the threat of Child Protective Services against people who are law-abiding marijuana consumers. An expert on the subject and a victim of these problems herself. We've got Serra Frank on the line, the founding director of Moms for Marijuana. Serra, how are you today?
I'm good, Russ. How are you? Thank you.
I'm doing fantastic. Glad to have you on. And I just wanted to let our audience know that we had originally planned this segment to be a little bit of a panel segment. We were going to have another couple of guests on the show. But apparently, a judge doesn't think much of the First Amendment. Can you give us a clue on what's going on here?
Yeah. The original plan that you and I had discussed was to have the Shoares family on. Now, that's Jess and Tabitha Shoares down in Phoenix, Arizona. And I've been working with them closely. They reached out to us through Google, through the Fight for Lily Foundation, because they wanted help. They felt that they were being unjustly persecuted, and that the state had been taking advantage of a tragic situation where they had lost one of their children in an accident and withholding their other children for that. So we got involved and we went down to Arizona and did what we do, which is chalk walks and raise awareness and, start talking about this. And suddenly there's a gag order on the parents. And they have been threatened with jail time. And this is all that I can really remember from when I was in Arizona a few weeks ago.
Wow.
They were going to be on the show today, but they had court this morning. And I received a phone call after court that she can no longer talk about things at all.
Wow. Okay.
And I don't even know what happened in court other than they told this family to tell me to take down my Change.org petition against them. They're saying that it's interrupting their work.
It's always suspect to me whenever a government, any sort of organization tries to cloak themselves in secrecy. Is this something that's happened in other of these CPS cases where a judge will forbid people to talk about it?
Well, in our case with Billy and the Fight for Lily, for sure out of Spokane, Washington, the Commissioner Joliker in that case, told Billy that it was going to be detrimental to his daughter and that they were going to place her for adoption if he continued to speak out about it. And she was upset because he'd gone to HempFest and talked about it because his was a marijuana-related CPS case. And he just got louder. So no actual gag order has ever been issued. And I hadn't really heard about that happening until I started hearing these stories from Arizona. It seems to be a very common thing in Arizona, and it's the question that when they start being all secretive and putting gag orders on people, what is the court hiding? And like in Washington, when Vika and Jesse Thompson were fighting a case about marijuana out of Bellingham, Washington, 2020 came in with cameras, and the judge welcomed them into the courtroom, and he was a very logical judge. So it makes you wonder about the judicial conduct in those courts in Arizona when a gag order is issued.
Okay, so let's find out what we can about the Shoares case. What can you tell us? How did it come about?
Well, I can tell you everything that I knew up until the gag order because I've been working with them for many months now. And it started with their daughter, and she was 3 years old. Her name was Chloe. And she passed away while in the care of a babysitter. The parents.
Is there a cause known for why the baby passed away? A disease, an accident, something like that?
they didn't give one, and the police have yet to give one. They are alleging that it was homicide by the babysitter, but the babysitter has not been arrested. No charges have been filed, and this was in August of 2014.
Okay.
So that kind of brings, and that's the entire basis, or the primary basis, of what I remember when I first learned the Shoares case for CPS involvement. But as with any case with CPS, what they do is they pick the parents apart and they put them under a microscope and they find other reasons. And they put them in services and assessments to find other reasons of why they should keep the children away. And that's what caught my attention really big, of course, because I'm a marijuana activist, was that they kept throwing marijuana into it, even though in Arizona it's been medically legal since 2010. And what they had been throwing into it was that the father had smoked a bowl while he was in Colorado and then moved to Arizona. And so he was positive. And so these are all things that have all been known since last year. This gag order that they've put on, is obviously unconstitutional and obviously hiding something, but apparently very common in Arizona. And marijuana, it's just used as a piece of the puzzle. So with CPS and the problems with CPS corruption is that it's become a multi-billion-dollar industry that is using our children as currency for federal funding. They get grants off of Title IV, off of Social Security, the reduced school lunches programs, Medicaid, and so a lot of the reasons that they remove children have to do with medical choices, religious beliefs, getting a second opinion, having a 10-year-old walk to the park by himself. I mean, I did that when I was 10. When did that become child abuse?
Yeah, we can think of Diane Fornbacher's case where her son mentions that mom talked about industrial hemp, and that was enough to trigger an investigation.
Right. And they look for any reason. And it's when you start looking into the training and into the statistics of these agencies, you see kind of why there is this corruption. It is a lack of training. A lot of people are starting to speak out. There's a former CPS investigator from Texas named Carlos Morales who wrote a book called Legally Kidnapped, and it goes into everything about what CPS uses and how little training they actually have and actually give to these people who then have authority to remove children from families. And we find that these social workers are guilty of fraud. They're guilty of perjury. They fabricate stuff just to pursue parental rights. And that was another thing in the Shoares case that was being done, is they were already pursuing their parental rights and they hadn't even obtained an actual not contested dependency on the children. So looking at CPS and looking at the marijuana issue, we've got 37% of foster kids are there because of something to do with the war on drugs, some kind of drug use where the parents are needing rehabilitation.
Wow. More than one out of 3.
A lot of those. Yeah.
Wow.
And well, when you put it into comparison, only 22% of children in foster care are there for actual abuse.
Wow.
And so they are using marijuana and they are using the war on drugs to attack families and to tear families apart. And it's all based on what's in Latin, it's called parens patriae. I'm bad at Latin. But it means parent of the nation. And it was used in England prior to colonial times to take guardianship of orphans and children who needed, a parent, somebody to take care of them until they reached the age of majority. And I'm actually right now in the middle of a juvenile justice course for my criminal justice degree, and it keeps talking about this parens patriae, and it's for the state to act in the best interest of the child. And that's used so much in dependency, and that's used so much to remove children is, it's in the best interest of the child. That's first. That's what's first, and we're not going to even question it until we've sorted it out. So they'll remove children from their homes and throw them into strange homes where they're more likely to be abused, more likely to be killed, and more likely to suffer PTSD compared to even combat military veterans coming home from war. And when you talk about the best interest of the child, is it in reality doing that to them over an allegation?
Yeah.
Because it's not even substantiated allegations that can remove these children from their homes. It's just anybody can make an allegation.
Exactly.
And that's where the marijuana thing comes into play.
It reminds me a little bit of asset forfeiture, where your stuff doesn't have to be guilty for them to take it. Here, you don't have to be guilty for them to take your kids. At least what I'm understanding from your description of the Shoares case, we have one of their children dying in the custody of a babysitter, not the parents, and then the parents have other kids that the court doesn't show that there's any damage to these other kids, but because daddy smoked a joint in Colorado, they got to be taken away. Am I summarizing this right?
That's a piece of it. I mean, they've attacked pretty much every aspect of the family that they can. But the main one, and what they were attempting to sever their parental rights on, was the allegation that they left their child in the care of this man who abused the child, and they should have known not to use that babysitter because it would put the child at risk. They should have known this, and that's the basis for like the entire thing. And then they go in and they pick it apart. You know, just like in Billy's case, marijuana had nothing to do with it. It wasn't until he was in the courtroom fighting back that they brought out the marijuana and said, oh, you're a medical patient, you can't parent your child. Well, he fought back and he proved them wrong, and that's what the Shoares family wants to do. But, of course, you know, there's this gag order, so how can they adequately fight back and voice their frustrations and their grievances with the government if they're not allowed to have their First Amendment right to do so?
Yeah, and folks, the constitutionality of this, I mean, people think, wow, that's got to be unconstitutional, but you'd be surprised what powers a judge has. I remember reporting on the case of South Dakota normal activist Bob Newland, who, after he got busted, a judge forbid him for a year to do any organizing or lobbying for medical marijuana in the state. He couldn't talk about it anywhere. So it's amazing what they'll do. And this is really tragic. In the time we've got left, Sarah, give folks some concrete things they can do, some help, some websites, donations, anything they can do to help this family.
For sure. It's the Facebook page that I've created to help just gather support for them is facebook.com/Shoares family, SHOARS family. You can also find us through the Fight for Lily. We are going to be organizing some protests just in general of all gag orders and corruption and using children as tools of intimidation to get parents to shut up and comply with the services that they're saying they need without any evidence. So we need people to start standing up and speaking out and learning their rights, because you have rights that will protect you against them seizing your children for marijuana use and for any reason. So it's important to learn how to fight.
Yeah, it's very scary, folks. Even if you're in a medical state and you got a card, even if you're in a legal state and you're an adult, we're still not equal. They can take your kids. Serra Frank, Moms for Marijuana, the Fight for Lily, thank you so much for delving into this area of reform. It's very, very important. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Russ.
All right. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about this subject and how, if it wasn't marijuana, their bigotry would be obvious. Stick around. We're back right after the anti-drug public service announcement of the day.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
420 Radio, your ticket to Seattle Hemp Fest. At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio. In the interest of fair and balanced journalism, the Russ Belville Show presents the anti-drug public service announcement of the day. This has been the anti-drug public service announcement of the day. To cure this sort of reefer madness, listen to the Russ Belville Show every weekday on 420radio.org. When you are starting up a medical cannabis business, you want a fired-up lawyer who understands the needs of cannabis consumers. The law office of Lauren Vasquez is your fired-up lawyer for the cannabis industry. Visit her website, fireduplawyer.com, or call 1-855-MMJ-LAWS for more information. That's 855-665-5297 for Lauren Vasquez, your fired-up lawyer, or email fireduplawyer@gmail.com.
We must wage what I have called total war against public enemy number one.
I support a change in law to end federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
That marijuana, pot, grass, whatever you want to call it, is probably the most dangerous drug.
Some think there won't be room for them in jail. We'll make room.
I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it and didn't inhale.
And one major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
Entirely legitimate topic for debate.
Radical Rant.
Welcome back, everyone. 47 after the hour, and today in the rant, I want to talk about how if it wasn't marijuana, they could see just how bigoted they are. And there's a number of stories that lead me to this conclusion. One of them coming out here from the state of Oregon, where there were brand new rules promulgated by the board that regulates childcare in the state of Oregon. We have like licensed childcare, licensed daycare, and they issued some new rules because there's some concern that people with mental illnesses might be working in childcare facilities. You know, people with depression or anxiety or bipolar disorder might be around our children. And we really need to be worried that those kind of people, you know, people with mental disorders, might be around our precious and vulnerable children. So these new rules were promulgated that says no child care provider can have an antidepressant or psychological medication prescription. If you have a psych medication prescription from now on, you can't work in a child care. You can't own a child care. And the people working in the child care facilities can't use their Prozac, their Xanax, any of those, Wellbutrins, any of those antidepressants, can't use them during the child care hours or when the children are present. And nobody who's under the influence of any of these selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, any of these antidepressant drugs, nobody on antidepressants is going to be allowed to have contact with children at the child care. And nobody can have any of those prescriptions at the child care. Even if they're locked up, even if they're stored away where the kids could never get at them, you can't have those medications there. But it is okay for the children to be on those medications. If they have an antidepressant prescription, they're okay to be on them. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, folks. I made a huge mistake. It's not people with mental illnesses and antidepressant medication. My bad. It's medical marijuana patients. Yeah. That's the new rules that were promulgated today, that people with medical marijuana cards in the state of Oregon cannot be child care providers, cannot work at a child care, and nobody under the influence of marijuana can be around the children at a child care. Amazing how much more bigoted and discriminatory and prejudicial it sounds when I was using mental illness and SSRIs, huh? These state boards are just reacting to this hysteria about, there was a story that came out like 6 months ago that, yes, there were some medical marijuana card holders who were running a daycare. They weren't smoking around the kids. They weren't high around the kids. They weren't leaving their weed out around the kids. But oh my God, somebody who's a medical marijuana user might be around our kids. And this was a big old controversy and firestorm. And now here you have it. The discrimination, the bigotry has been writ into law. You are a second-class citizen unworthy of being around our children because you use marijuana. This is outdated reefer madness fears replacing science and common sense. Adult marijuana consumers are just as capable and responsible in the workplace, even with children, as consumers of alcohol and tobacco. These rules are as un-American and offensive as the "No Irish Need Apply" signs during the turn of the previous century. Here's another example. This was an interesting one coming out of Colorado. A trooper with the Colorado State Patrol was asked about alcohol and DUI. You know, we don't want to have drunk drivers on our roads. Never want to have any sort of impaired drivers. And so Trooper Josh Lewis of the Colorado State Patrol said, typically, to have that full impairment out, 8 hours would be a good recommendation. That would be a minimum. Can you believe that? Does this state cop really think that people that are going to the Colorado Rockies baseball game and having a couple of cold Coors beers in the stands will have to sit in the parking lot of the stadium for 8 hours before they can drive their cars away? Does he really expect people to buy that? That if they go out and visit a friend and have some wine with dinner, they're going to have to stay the night at their friend's house because they got to wait 8 hours before they're unimpaired? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. My bad. I mistook the word alcohol for marijuana. Yeah, he was talking about marijuana. That someone who smokes marijuana should have to wait 8 hours before they go and drive. Yeah, my bad, because here I'm looking at this blood alcohol chart here. Now, I'm a 240-pound man. According to this chart, I could drink 3 shots in an hour. 3 shots in an hour. I could have a shot every 20 minutes of hard liquor and get behind the wheel immediately. According to this chart, it says I'd only have a 0.07 blood alcohol level. The legal limit's 0.08. And as long as I believe that I'm not impaired and I don't demonstrate any impairment on the road, I could be perfectly okay to drive away after having 3 shots of hard liquor. I could drive that minute. Oh, but not marijuana. Gosh, if I even smoke a puff on a joint, I better crash for 8 hours. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has already told us that it's, quote, inadvisable to try to predict effects based on blood THC concentrations alone. Marijuana ain't alcohol. And if alcohol consumers can be given a guide as to how much they can use and how long they have to wait, I don't understand why marijuana consumers aren't afforded the same privileges. We trust adult alcohol consumers to judge their level of impairment, and we provide them education and guidance on understanding when they will be impaired. But when it comes to marijuana, we're expected to adhere to a standard that effectively locks us in our homes if we want to consume marijuana, and it's completely anti-science. We've got the science showing that people like me who smoke marijuana all the time develop tolerance to the impairing effects and have no problem operating a motor vehicle safely. In what other ways does their bigotry show off? If you take the marijuana out of this, well, here's a test, real simple test. Turn on your TV or walk through your downtown area and hold your breath until you see a drug. Now, unless you're watching the Disney Channel or living in rural Utah, there's a good chance you won't pass out anytime soon. I mean, really, to hear the phrase drug-free America while being barraged by alcohol, tobacco, and pharmaceutical ads, and the venues that sell them openly, where people are using them openly, man, my chance of explosive cognitive dissonance has just increased by a factor of 6 Nancy Graces. But look, marijuana. When it comes to marijuana, Washington State, hell, they've got a law that the sign on your legal pot shop can only be 1 1,600 square inch plain lettered, no pot leaves, no color sign. That's it. That's all you can have. Can't paint the walls of the outside. Can't have a bigger sign. Can't have 2 separate signs. 1 sign, 1,600 square inches. No advertising in the papers. No advertising on the billboards. No advertising on the television. Why are we forced to curtail our First Amendment rights so drastically when I can't turn a channel without seeing a Viagra ad, a Coors Light ad? It's again, second-class citizenship. Marijuana is treated like homosexuality in the 1950s. It's the drug that dare not speak its name. Can't have vapor lounges, can't have public consumption, can't even let people smoke in a park behind a veiled curtain, lest someone realize that marijuana's legal. But hell, pawn shops, strip clubs, taverns, pharmacies, liquor stores. They can be right across the street from the school. No big deal there. And here's another one. What's the limit on purchasing alcohol in this country? Like, if you go to the store and you wanted to buy 8,000 12-packs of beer, could you do it? I mean, assuming they had the inventory, right? Yes, you can. In fact, some states encourage it. Here in the state of Oregon, if there's a type of liquor that you want that you can't buy at the state store because they don't have it in stock, they will custom order it for you, but you have to order it by the case. So they actually encourage you to order greater amounts. If there's a state out there that has a limit on how much alcohol a person can purchase and possess, I haven't found it. There are lots of states now that have dry counties where they don't let alcohol sales, but even there you can still possess it. And even in those dry counties, some of them have wet cities within the county where alcohol is sold. And as of 2013, when Alabama and Mississippi passed new laws, now in all 50 states, it is legal for two people to homebrew up to 200 gallons of beer in their homes. That's the equivalent of 355 six-packs of 12-ounce beer. 355 six-packs a year. Well, actually, no, it's not per year. It's how much you can have on hand. But with marijuana, in the 4 states that have made it legal, you can purchase and possess 1 ounce in public. In Washington, you can't home cultivate. Colorado and Alaska will allow you 3 mature plants, and Oregon will allow you 4 mature plants. Hardly the equivalent of a 200-gallon home brew operation. But again, marijuana users treated as second-class citizens. And finally, just think of your civil rights, just like what we were talking there with Serra Frank. I mean, go ahead, have another glass of wine, pop your Viagra pill. It's the weekend, baby. The kids are asleep and you deserve some me time. Enjoy yourself. Take a break. Relax from all your stress because you know, come Monday, you can go to work without any fear of a random drug test. You can pick up your kids from school without the fear that the school resource officer and a child protective services worker will be waiting for you because your kid mentioned you enjoy wine on the weekends. You can go in for your medical appointment knowing that you'll still be on the organ transplant list for that kidney you need. But if you smoked a joint in Denver or Seattle last week on vacation, you could lose your job, you could lose your child, you could lose your shot at that new kidney. Treat marijuana like alcohol is a hell of a slogan. We got a long way to go before it's actually true. All right, folks, that's all the time we got for Hour 1, but stay tuned for Toker Talk Radio Hour 2. We take your live calls at 971-533-7111. In Hour 2 today, we're going to talk about the Kettle Falls 5, those medical marijuana patients, the family up in Washington State that the government just can't wait to put behind bars. That is, if the patriarch lives through his pancreatic cancer long enough to go behind bars. And we'll talk about the upcoming Super Bowl X-Licks. Plus, Herb Thrasher will be calling in with our Rockin' Friday Daily Toker Tunes. It's all coming up in Hour 2 Toker Talk Radio, available on demand for VIP members of 420radio.org. Sign up for as little as $4.20 a month. For everyone here at 420radio.org, I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, Tokers!
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you